Ace Attorney is the nicest game about death. Growing up, I never played the Ace Attorney games. I had a couple friends who did, but all I saw from those games was that they were boring, slow-paced logic games for kids. But now that I've recently rolled the credits on a few Ace Attorney games, I can tell you with absolute sincerity, the Ace Attorney games are not made for kids. There are some wild things that happen in these games. Almost every case involves a murder of some kind, usually committed through some brutal act of violence. People get their heads smashed in with statues and busts. People are poisoned and slowly succumb to their paralysis and death. Dead bodies are stabbed posthumously. Yeah, this ain't the Hello Kitty and Friends kind of game I thought these games were. They're dark. But they're also some of the most wholesome and warm-hearted games I've ever played. Look, I love a lot of violent video games. Many of my personal favorite games of all time feature heavy violence and gore, not just thematically, but as central devices to their gameplay and narrative. Games like God of War, The Last of Us, Dead Space, the Resident Evil series, Soulsborne games, etc. But as someone who loves violent video games, I have to admit something. Sometimes I can just get kind of tired of all the violence, you know? This goes beyond just video games too. I don't know about you, but for me, it can feel like so much of the most popular TV shows and movies, as well as mainstream news media in general, are specifically and predominantly about violence, death, drugs, murder, and topics that are just pretty horrible in general. I hate watching the news because that's all it is to me. Some big spreader of negativity and fear. It seems like every other day there's some new documentary or TV show all about real-life mass murder, serial killers, cults, abuse, death, drugs, and again, as someone who loves violent video games and the brutal realism of the darkest parts of our world, it can all just be a little much. But the Ace Attorney games weren't games about murder or violence. Yes, there was usually some kind of death as the central crime to each story, but it didn't glorify death and feature splattered body parts and viscera and stunning 4K 60 FPS like Doom or Dead Space or Gears of War, even among other narrative story games like Disco Elysium or the Telltale games. Ace Attorney is a quiet game, a slow, methodical thinker's game. It's equal parts ridiculous and earnest. The game's seriousness serves to set up and elevate the game's unhinged silliness. The game's dark and heavy topics like murder and death and self-deletion, I'll say for YouTube, those themes allow for the narrative to express its true message, that light will always penetrate the darkness, no matter how bad things become. Ace Attorney is the nicest game about death, but the franchise is also one of the penultimate showcases of wholesomeness in a violent world, both in the games themselves as well as the current video game landscape that you and I live in. In this video essay, I want to talk about the power of wholesome games in a violent world and the lessons we can learn about darkness and death through even the silliest of stories and characters. Also, I make a lot of videos like these, so if you want to watch more, be sure to click that subscribe button. I gotta be honest, recently it's felt extremely tough to be positive about the world. Right now, we're in the middle of a global trade war with ridiculously high tariffs that are making everything cost more money while simultaneously depleting everyone's savings and investments. We're on the brink of a global recession, companies are laying off hundreds of thousands of people, and if you ever turn on the news, they can't wait to tell you just how bad things are. I hate that. I'm a positive guy and I want to look at the bright side of things no matter how dark or depressing they can look. But still, it just gets tough even for someone like me to find that relief nowadays. I think video games can help us though, especially wholesome games, because wholesome games matter right now. When used responsibly, video games can be an excellent, cost-effective, communal escape from the stresses of our lives and help us relate to characters in our games, to each other, and to the fictional worlds that our characters inhabit. Lots of people have told me in my comment sections how video games specifically have been some of the best resources and tools for relief that they've had for mental illness, depression, anxiety, and isolation. Now look, again, I love violent video games, games with dark, gritty, scary, intense, heavy themes. Some of my favorite games I've been playing recently have been the Silent Hill 2 remake, the Resident Evil 2 and 3 remakes, Slay the Princess, The Last of Us 2, and Is This Game Trying to Kill Me, to name a few. All amazing games. But the older I get, and the more I experience the real world and adulting, the more I'm seeing the power of wholesome games and why wholesome games just really matter, especially right now. These games aren't just palate cleansers between Battle Pass season updates. They can be truly refreshing and life-giving experiences in someone's life, especially if you're in a place of higher stress and anxiety, like being a student in school, or if you're working at a terrible job for a terrible boss, or even if you're just a tired parent of an infant that just need to feel recharged. I just beat Cuphead and all its DLC all the way through for a second time, and I loved it. But also, it was just so exhausting by the end. All the frame perfect spacing, perfect movements and dashes through the hyper difficult bullet hell bosses. By the end, I was just feeling absolutely drained. I didn't play any video games for like 2 weeks after I rolled the credits. I just needed to take a break. All I wanted to do was sit back, relax, and enjoy a slow-paced session that didn't require absolute focus and precision. I think it's hard for people to switch genres to a game like Ace Attorney, or a cozy game like Stardew or The Sims, if you've never done that before. But more and more, wholesome and relaxed games have a greater and greater power as you get older, and it's not something you should quickly overlook and forget. Once in a while, you should do yourself a favor and play a game that can truly uplift you and help you feel better about yourself and the world, even if it's just for a little bit. That's the power of wholesome games, and that's the power of Ace Attorney. As I discovered later in life, the Ace Attorney games are definitely not G-rated, free of violence and adult content. Lots of people lie and cheat and betray each other. Characters are killed like all the time, often in surprisingly violent ways. But this game isn't about you, the player, doing these things. You play as a goofy, doofy, Dorcas Malorcas lawyer named Phoenix Wright and his large cast of ridiculous and ridiculously wholesome sidekicks. And it's up to you and your silly band of friends to solve the case, save the day, and make the world a better place by applying justice for all. Sorry. While these games do feature violence and fighting, it's minimal and not the point of the game by any definition. But more importantly, the heart and soul of these games is absolutely a wholesome one. I was pleased to see that although Ace Attorney didn't have an M rating or anything, it was still a game not specifically for kids. There's a lot of unspoken, hidden backstories between characters that hinted at deep, dark betrayals and broken friendships that stemmed from cutthroat ambition. It was goofy and silly and wholesome, but it didn't paint the world as sunshine and rainbows. It was a game about real-life horrors like murder and death, but centered on characters who are ultimately willing to fight against the tide of darkness, set aside their differences, trust each other, band together, and do their best to help one another on their respective journeys. See, wholesome doesn't automatically mean childish. Conversely, violent doesn't automatically mean mature. We can see examples of this everywhere. Recently, my two kids have been watching the Toy Story movies for the first time, and I'm catching adult references in these movies that I never caught as a kid that are absolutely hilarious. There's a scene in Toy Story 2 where Buzz is about to leave to rescue Woody after he was kidnapped, and Bo Peep gives Buzz a huge kiss, telling him to tell Woody it was from her. He clears his throat. I don't think it'll be the same coming from me. I was laughing my ass off, and my 4-year-old asked me what was so funny. Sometimes the best childish things are also the things that resonate with adults even more than kids. There's something wonderfully cathartic and nice about being a nice, wholesome, goofy lawyer with a clear sense of right and wrong, focused only on achieving justice and doing the right thing. It's simple black and white in a world full of violent, confusing gray. It's one of the reasons why I like the stories of the Zelda franchise, which are about as basic and childlike as they come. You're the good guy, Ganon is the bad guy, go save the world from his evil. I think this spirit of simplicity resides in all of us in some way. We want to be the hero with a clear enemy, no ambiguity or hesitation on who's right or if we're actually wrong. There's great power in this simplicity, and it feels like I don't see that too much in video games anymore. So while the Ace Attorney games are not G-rated and involve all manner of terrible, evil, violent people, we, the player, are none of these things in this game. We are Phoenix Wright, striving with every ounce of our being to simply find the truth, even at the expense of our own lying clients or our own reputation. We want the truth, whatever that might be. My first memories with video games are around the Zelda games. I didn't know at the time, but from the moment I first saw those beautiful, captivating 16 and 32-bit pixel art graphics on my Game Boy and Game Boy Advance, as I went on epic adventures around Hyrule with Link, something in me would always be drawn to the simplicity, innocence, and childlike sense of adventure that I always found in the Zelda franchise. As an adult, I'm unapologetically drawn to those games still, the kind of games that remind me of what it felt like to be 8 years old again, excited beyond words that I just got in the hookshot in Ocarina of Time or the Cane of Samaria in Oracle of Ages. In a way, the Ace Attorney games have captured and nurtured this sense of childlike wonder in me. As a child, I never understood why bad things happened, why people could do such terrible, hurtful things to each other. Phoenix Wright has a similar sentiment. He stops just at the point of being overly goofy and childish. He's shocked at the world's cruelty, but also has the spine to confront the heinous crimes he's tasked with solving, and gets to work despite how horrifying the situation may be. His sense of duty and perseverance was something I always wanted myself as a kid. Although I didn't understand the cruelty and terrors of the world, I wanted to protect my younger brothers and friends from them, however I could. Given this, I was almost surprised how much I liked Phoenix, given how naive he could be. I mean, I like mature, dark, violent video games, so why did I like Phoenix so much? I think the answer is that deep in me, there's always going to be that kid with a sense of wonder and awe and childlike desire to protect my friends and slay the evil dragon threatening our community. And I gotta say, as naive as Phoenix Wright is, he's always made me feel those feelings again. And for that, I'm truly grateful. I love that part about me, and I hope I never lose it. As many of you probably know, Kevin Hart is one of, if not the most popular and famous comedian in the world. But in his autobiography, he revealed that before his rise to global stardom, he was just some amateur comic doing silly jokes at dirty dive bars. He had spent years making up ridiculous stories. Situational humor that, although stories that were purely made up, still got a few laughs. Years into his career, one of his mentors gave him advice that would change his life forever. He told Hart, "Be real with your comedy." Up until that point, Hart had just been making up fabricated stories for laughs, but now he was being told to be real and authentic. It was scary to be that vulnerable. What if no one laughed? What humor was there in his day-to-day life, in his childhood defined by poverty and fear? Turns out a lot. Once Hart started making light of the very real trauma, heartbreak, and brokenness he had experienced, he began reaching audiences in new and intimate ways that he could have never done had he kept just making up stories. As comedian Carol Burnett once put it, Comedy is tragedy plus time. Or as the great Charlie Chaplin once said, to truly laugh, you must be able to take your pain and play with it. After this change, Hart began resonating with audiences immediately. Turns out, being open and honest about his rough upbringing in the ghettos of Philadelphia with a single mom and no money gave him plenty to talk about. Now, what does all this have to do with Ace Attorney? The more I played the Ace Attorney games, the more I saw this phenomenon happen more too. In the games, Phoenix's mentor, Mia Fey, is tragically killed, leaving young Phoenix to fend for himself with no help, save Mia's wacky younger sister, Maya. But the game doesn't focus on Mia's death as a cheesy, overly emotional experience that defines the characters, nor does it sweep the incident under the rug and unceremoniously move on. The Ace Attorney games allow you to sit with the fact that your friend and mentor was killed, but also helps you use this experience to move on, be better, and honor her memory. Like Kevin Hart's new brand of authentic, vulnerable humor that unmasks our collective fears and hurts and uses them to bring people together through laughter and acceptance, I found that the Ace Attorney games talked about real-life issues like death, broken friendships, grief, and overwhelm in ways that constantly made me think of my own similar life experiences and better come to terms with them. For instance, Maya is always poking fun at Phoenix for some reason or another. His ridiculous haircut, his perpetual lack of preparedness, his proclivity to just yell "objection" at the most inappropriate times. But when she starts to give Phoenix a hard time about his weird, mysterious relationship with his rival, Miles Edgeworth, it's almost like the writers changed for his character. He immediately cuts the crap and tells her to quit it, that it's none of her business, and that she needs to drop it. It's obviously a sore spot for him, with some kind of shame or pain or hurt that he's unwilling to talk about yet. And then it's back to being goofy and ridiculous. It's this level of depth and surprisingly authentic human interaction that really gives these characters believability and likability. I think video game writing has gotten better over time, and with the advent of motion capture technology in games like God of War and Last of Us, these characters and their emotions can feel more real than ever. But Phoenix Wright is literally just a picture. The dude is hand-drawn and the game just changes his picture once every few seconds. From an animation standpoint, he's about as two-dimensional as you can get. But why is he such a memorable character? Why do I relate to him so much like I do? I think it's just his authenticity and vulnerability, without being either overly emotional or underdeveloped. His iconic catchphrases, I believe he's only ever given 3 spoken phrases: objection, hold it, and take that! His jetted black haircut, his unwavering sense of justice and duty, even in the face of overwhelming odds, just made his character so likable to me. It's hard to get authenticity and vulnerability right, and the Ace Attorney games just nail it. There's a moment in all Ace Attorney games, well, many moments actually, where things get serious. You need to find a contradiction. Someone said something that doesn't add up, and you only get a few chances to get it right. The case hangs in the balance. Get too many wrong tries, and it's literally game over. You need to pay attention in these games. And the farther along you go in a story, the longer the list of suspects and pieces of evidence you need to remember. In this regard, the Ace Attorney games are a very specific type of game. They're solely single player, extremely slow paced, narrative focused, and much of your game time is spent slowly sifting through dozens of text boxes and menus for you to find the answer to a riddle you don't even know you're looking for. You'll never see Ace Attorney games in an arcade or an esports event or even on a popular streamer's channel. These games are meant to be played alone, methodically, and slowly. For a lot of gamers who have never played Ace Attorney, I've already mentioned like 4 separate deal breakers. A lot of gamers have little to no interest in anything I just mentioned. But that's also one of the greatest powers of the Ace Attorney franchise. These games are unapologetic in their genre and vibe. These are slow-paced thinkers of games, and that's all they're ever going to be. The older you get, the harder it is to try new things. Your habits, preferences, and beliefs tend to get more, not less, hardened. It gets harder, not easier, to change. But as you get older, I encourage you to try new games you may have never considered, like Ace Attorney. These kinds of games can open your mind up to all sorts of new puzzles, challenges, and victories. No frame-perfect pairing required. This was definitely true for me. In high school, I had a couple friends who were super into the Ace Attorney games. Actually, one of them went on to be an actual lawyer. Coincidence? I think not. I look over their shoulder, maybe even play for a few minutes, but I quickly became bored and wanted to go back to playing like Mario Kart or Guitar Hero or Halo, something crazy and intense and fast-paced. It was nearly 15 years later that I finally decided to buy an Ace Attorney game and see what all the fuss was about. And boy, was I glad I did. See, it's hard for me to get immersed in games nowadays. Maybe it's just because I'm getting older, or that I have kids now, or that I have many thousands of dollars in bills to pay each month, and managing to save even a few bucks per paycheck can feel like a foolish aspiration. But for whatever reason, it's just harder for me to get immersed in games. It was easy to get immersed in the Ace Attorney games. It was easy to gravitate towards how wholesome and nice these games were, even when you're in the middle of solving a horrific murder, sorting through liars and cheaters and backstabbers looking to escape justice any chance they got. Ace Attorney is a wholesome franchise, and it's one that stands out as a shining light of the countless number of popular, amazing, yet extremely dark and gritty games out there. And I love those games. But Ace Attorney gave me hope and laughs and a lightheartedness that I hadn't experienced in almost any other game before or since. Thanks for watching. And if you want to watch more videos like this, be sure to click that subscribe button.